welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined as always by McKenna.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
We are talking about Kirby
Yeah.
today for the first time ever on the show. Do you have any background with the Kirby series? I know the answer.
I hadn't played any Kirby games before, so my Kirby familiarity comes from Smash.
Of course. Okay, cool. Well, it's a good connection there. I was pretty similar. Like, that's, I think, the first way I knew Kirby. But I did play when I was young, and we'll talk about it more on our episode way down the line. But I played the Nintendo 64 Kirby game. And back in the Wii Virtual Console days, I actually got the Kirby's Adventure, I think it is, for NES, and I played through that and liked it. So a little bit familiar, but I'm excited to go back and start from the beginning, see where it all came from. I don't think I've played this game, but we have the perfect guests here for a Kirby conversation. We're going to make a Kirby connection with the Kirby Conversations podcast. We are joined by Sean. Hey, Sean.
Hi.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And also Bridget. Hey, Bridget.
Hello. Also, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I love your podcast. We're going to talk about Kirby, and we'll plug the podcast and tell everyone what it's all about. I think some people on this podcast feed may be familiar with it, but we do have sort of an icebreaker that we do to our first-time guests, and we like to get their backstory with the topic of our overall show, the Nintendo 64. So, it's okay, as little or as much experience as you all have had with it, but I think Nintendo fans and Kirby fans probably have experienced it. But yeah, Bridget, what's your backstory with the Nintendo 64?
Well, it's a console I played a lot as a kid, especially the multiplayer aspect of it. I feel like it was the first console where like that was really pivotal to like my experience with it. Also,
Absolutely.
like interesting like tidbit is like I actually like growing up we didn't have a lot of money. The reason I even got an N64 was like a gentleman was selling it at a bodega and my dad was there. He's like, $40 this plus Zelda plus Mario 64, and I was like, yo dad, you gotta get that, that's so cheap.
Wow.
And yeah, so he was like, okay fine, I'll get it for you. And yeah, great guy. And it was amazing, like especially like I had a little brother, and it was great for two kids. There's so many multiplayer games, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, and then a big one for me personally was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which I love and have played multiple times. I loved that game so much when I played it back then that I just like replayed it over and over again.
Preach.
Like a couple times, yeah. So it's it's a good console, and I have a lot of positive shared memories with family and its games.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's the classic N64 experience right there. We love to hear it. Sean, how about you?
For me, my first experience with the Nintendo 64 was, I believe I got it as a birthday present. I have a twin brother, and I believe we got it sort of as a sort of joint birthday present the summer before third grade, I want to say. So like between second and third grade.
Okay.
I told my brother recently, I'm going to be on a podcast where they're going to ask me about my first experience with the Nintendo 64. And I want to confirm what my memory is of this with you, because one advantage of having someone who shared so many of your memories is you can be like, did that happen the way that I thought it happened to happen? But I believe it was that summer. So it was like, fairly, like, it wasn't right as the Nintendo 64 launched, but it was still like fairly new. And I think my most striking memory of it, like from like getting it and playing it for the first time, was playing Super Mario 64 and just getting used to moving a character in a 3D environment.
Sure.
And I remember that being very challenging at the time. And I was familiar with video games. Like, I had played the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis and stuff, but like playing with a character in a 3D space was like something new to really get used to. And even like figuring out, like, how do I hold this controller? Like, do I use this stick like a joystick? Do I hold it with like a separate hand? Or how do I wrap my hands around this? And
Right.
I remember just getting Mario into Peach's castle at the start of the game was sort of a challenge in and of itself. Like, I can remember like wandering around that garden, just like trying to get him to the door. And to this day, I have still not gotten him inside the castle.
Bad game.
No, we did get to the castle, and had many happy memories with it. I also think it was amusing to look back on how I think at the time, like, having not played the game, like, I think I had seen like pictures of the game or commercials of it, and I had seen these like, footage of like the camera being like up close to Mario, and it was almost sort of a first person perspective. And I'd seen like other pictures where the camera was kind of far away. And I think at the time I thought those were two different games. Like, there's this Mario game that was like right up close, but then there's also this sort of like more open one. And then I realized, like, oh, those are the same game. Sometimes the camera just comes in close and sometimes it's further back. And just some of those basic things now that we just like, take for granted as like, that's how games work. Like, at the time, my like 8 and 9-year-old self was still sort of learning what a video game was going to be like now that they were in 3D.
Sure.
But yeah, I really still have a lot of very positive memories of the Nintendo 64. I still play it regularly, and it's a great system that I think can be a little underrated sometimes. I know people sometimes look back on it, I don't know, it doesn't have the legacy that some Nintendo consoles do, but I think it really holds up and has a lot of really fun, playful games. And I don't really mind that old blocky polygonal style either.
Oh, love it.
Maybe it's just sort of nostalgia, but I find it kind of charming in its own way.
I think we're pretty big advocates of that style. We dig it. Yeah. It's nice to have a sibling too that you can confer with on some of those things, because your memory is hazy, and I've been fortunate enough to bring my brother on and grill him. So it's very much appreciated. Yeah. Well, how about it? We're a bunch of Nintendo fans. Here we are.
Yeah.
We never know what we're getting into, but I kind of figured, because of course we're bringing on some Kirby experts. I'm going to say you're experts. You can accept that or not, but do you want to, I don't know, Sean, Bridget, you guys want to give everyone sort of the elevator pitch of your show? I think some people might have heard it, but for those who don't know, let them know what it's all about.
Sure. So Kirby Conversations is a show that looks at all things Kirby, but we try to go pretty in depth with it. So it's not just sitting around being like, what's your favorite Kirby game? It's taking Kirby games and usually focusing on some aspect of a particular game rather than just doing a whole episode devoted to a single game or something. Trying to look at certain nuances and approach it in depth, looking at sort of the video game history side of it, looking at maybe even sort of like its connections to other genres or something like that. Like, we did an episode on Kirby Planet Robobot where we just looked at the game in the context of other mecha, film and TV and stuff. And that was an informative episode for me, because I don't know as much about mechs, but like Bridget and Kai Parker, who is also on our show. She's Captain Dangerous on Instagram, if people know her. She is a Nintendo affiliate who does a lot of their merchandise photography. If you've ever seen like a flat lay of a Nintendo Switch with like a nice little scene arranged around it or something put out through Nintendo's channels, like oftentimes Kai is the one arranging those setups. So she's on our show. We were also recently just brought on Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Wick Kirby, as well, is now part of our team too. So we're a motley group of Kirby fans. Bridget is a huge Kirby fan and influencer and collector. And I've been podcasting for a long time. I was a theater journalist before, and I did various theater podcasts. But I've always had a soft spot for Kirby. And so I want to do a Kirby podcast as my next project. So I found other people who I thought would be a good fit for it. And I feel like we've really had a lot of fun putting this show together over the past few months. So, Bridget, I don't know if there's anything else you want to share about it.
Yeah, I think in terms of like, I think podcasts and the way people talk about games now is kind of part of like game history, and there's so much about like Mario or Zelda, but I feel like Kirby's sort of like this missing piece, even though he's been actually pretty influential or done certain things first. And there hasn't quite been the same sort of information out there as some of these other bigger franchises, perhaps. So I think it's like something cool that has been missing from maybe that that communication, that expression of game appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also feel like sometimes Kirby is not seen as a series that is as much oriented toward older players. Not that we're really that old, but like I'm 36 and I feel like you can be in your 30s and still enjoy Kirby games and find a lot to appreciate about them, find maybe a deeper level of challenge with them than people realize the games have, or deeper levels of complexity that they're not familiar with. So we try to take that approach too and make sure it's like how to look at Kirby from a lot of different perspectives, not just taking Kirby as a meme character or something as he can sometimes be on the internet, but learning how to sort of appreciate that series on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's a great show. I love, how specific you will hit on certain topics, even for games that I'm not quite that familiar with. Like, I feel like I learn a lot listening to it. But I think it's also cool because, like you said, you kind of like contextualize certain things, which is something we are into doing over here. And also, I think what's fun about it is that you cover like wider things by Sakurai and HAL Laboratory, and we've been playing some HAL games on the NES. We did the launch of the NES, and it's just cool to get the wider scope of this really cool like early like strong developer for Nintendo. Like we're HAL fans.
Oh my god.
I have a little bit of a mini flashback for this game. If I am correct, you guys can fact check me. This game, Kirby's Dream Land, came out on August 1st, 1992 in North America. The number one song at that time was Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. Very fitting for this game, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number one movie was Unforgiven by the Clint Eastwood film, and I think there's kind of at times in this game I get some with some of the music, especially some like Western vibes a little bit in like sort of the main theme. So maybe some connection there, but Unforgiven is a little bit of a different tone than Kirby's Dream Land, to be sure.
There are parts of this game that are unforgiving. So
some legends will never be forgotten. Some wrongs can never be forgiven.
Kirby's Dream Land is a side-scrolling action platformer developed by HAL Laboratory for the Game Boy. It is the first Kirby game, and it was created with the intention of being beginner-friendly. Kirby can walk and jump, as well as fly through the levels by swallowing air to inflate himself. He attacks by inhaling enemies, and then either swallowing them or spitting them back out to use as a projectile attack. There are a number of items Kirby can pick up, some of which restore his health, and others which will allow him to attack differently, such as spicy food, which will give him a fire breath attack. There are 5 levels for Kirby to travel through, each with a boss to defeat at the end, who has stolen Dream World's magical sparkling stars and food. Get back the sparkling stars and defeat King Dedede to restore order to Dream World.
So yeah, it's the first Kirby game, and I believe this is the first game that Sakurai worked on, if I'm not correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So it's a good starting point for a lot of things, of course. I guess we didn't ask. We asked about your show and your N64 origins, but Bridget, you both can let us know where, just in terms of the Kirby series, like where did you come into it?
This is my first game, actually.
Okay.
So, I do have a lot of feelings about it. I had a Game Boy as a kid, and I remember my dad taking me to the game store, and he's like, "What's a good game for my daughter?" And the guy's like, "Well, this one's cute." But but you know what? It was also incredibly solid game, which is nice. I think when it comes to beginner games, which this game was designed so anyone can try to beat it. But I think a lot of times we look at like children's games or games aimed at newcomers, and we often think of like maybe shovelware or maybe like awful Barbie type games or things like that. And I feel like something that's special about Kirby is like it is so thoughtful and it's so considered to like a new person like getting into games, but the quality is, it's not like slop like that, where it's like, oh, they don't care. Just make it, put a licensed
100%.
character on it. And that's something I really appreciate about Kirby. I feel like with kids, it's like sometimes we treat them like they're not worthy of like better media, better literature, better films, better games, that you can just give them whatever and they'll just like eat it up. But they deserve nutritious, like good quality content too. And I feel like Kirby is sort of like this great series that can appeal to so many people getting into games, and it doesn't have to feel like oh, this is so awful to play. Like this
Right.
is like, or this is like unbeatable or whatever, it's considered, which I appreciate.
Yeah, especially like for the time, I feel like it's very forgiving, and it feels like pretty modern in a lot of ways, like very considered about like easing in new players. And I think of all ages, like especially at that time, like, a lot of people were getting into gaming, like, period, at that time. And I think so that was probably pretty important. I mean, we can't speak to it as children, or first like new gamers, but like McKenna, how did you feel about playing it not having any, Kirby background?
I definitely felt like it was easy to get into, to just pick up and start playing. But was also like pleasantly surprised that there were some more challenging parts.
Yeah, it does put you to the test for sure. Mm-hmm. Especially some of the bosses, I feel like.
Yeah.
Sean, what's your Kirby backstory?
For me, I didn't get to this one until much later. My first Kirby game was Kirby Superstar, which I played as a kid around the time it came out. And then I actually don't know for sure when the first time I played the original Kirby's Dream Land was, but I had Kirby's Dream Collection on the Wii, so I must have played it for the first time on that, because that's included in that compilation. But my strongest memory of being like, I'm going to sit down and finally play the first one was on the 3DS. So I was already like very familiar with Kirby. He was already well established as a favorite character from my childhood, whose games I still liked. And it was interesting replaying it again recently, because there was, a certain amount that I had forgotten since I had first played it. And I had never played through the extra mode before. I think like the first time I beat it on the 3DS, it was like, okay, that was nice. Oh, there's a harder mode. Okay, well, I won't really play that now. But the extra mode in this game is quite challenging. So there were sort of nuances about it that even like now I'm kind of like learning and discovering again for myself. But yeah, this was one I didn't play until well after playing a lot of other Kirby games. And given that Kirby doesn't have his signature copy ability in this one, it's actually very interesting to go back and play this.
Oh yeah,
play Kirby in this format, because the expectation might be like, oh, the game will it feel like it's really missing something if a core part of the character isn't there. Like you can go back and play the original Super Mario Brothers, and in a lot of ways it still kind of feels like Mario, right? There's no version of
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers where like you get a mushroom and it doesn't do anything, right? Like,
Right,
but
yeah. The
you play
closest
through
I can think
Kirby's-
of is like the arcade Mario Bros, where it doesn't have the full thing, but yeah, I get you, yeah.
like you'll play through this one and you'll inhale someone, even though you know there aren't copy abilities, your brain still kind of expects there to be one.
Yeah.
And but the game actually still feels really complete. Like it doesn't feel like it's missing something. I wouldn't, want the copy ability to go away or anything, but I think this game really holds up. I think it's aged really well. And McKenna, I think it's really interesting that you got to play this one as your first one, because you're experiencing Kirby the way people did back in the 90s, right? You're sort of having that experience of Kirby that people maybe don't have anymore. So that's a cool way to play them, almost in order like that, to start at the very beginning.
Yeah. I don't think it's how I imagined I would play my first Kirby game, but
Did you feel like, because you know about the copy ability, right? So
yeah.
Did you feel like that was missing?
Not too much, because I feel like when I don't play as Kirby a lot in Smash, but I don't feel like I find myself using the copy ability a ton when I play as Kirby.
It's all about being the rock.
Yeah. Pounding, yeah. Just floating and knocking them down.
At some point, you're going to play Kirby's Adventure, and you're going to go running to Gooey, being like, "Guess what Kirby can do in this one?" Like,
Whoa. Yeah, I didn't know that actually. Or like maybe I had heard that like at some point or something and kind of forgot about it. But the first thing I did, like starting it up, was like swallow guy and hit down, and it was like, oh, okay, that must be one that doesn't transform. Okay, nope, that one doesn't. Oh, okay, I guess he doesn't transform in this one. But I agree with you. It didn't feel like, I don't know, did you feel like anything was missing?
No.
I think it's because it is like it walks a really good line of being like, it is for beginners. It's very like simple, but like the gameplay I think it feels really good to play. And like they get a lot out of like it's such a like nice compact little game, and it feels like they did everything they could with it to make it really fun and really exciting. While like it really reminds me of Link's Awakening, because we're Zelda fans. We always connected to Zelda, but how it's like such a, it almost has like the scope. It almost feels like it has the scope of something like A Link to the Past, but it's actually so compacted, so tiny on this tiny little world, these little screens. And I don't know, they're just like masterfully getting a lot out of this little game. And I think that contributes to why it feels so good to play. I felt like too, I don't know if this is the case for anyone else, but like for me, it was easy because I think a big part of why I checked out Kirby was that I knew it had the same creator as Smash, and playing the side-scrolling stuff in the Smash games, looking at Kirby stuff, it like looked similar, and I felt like there was a familiarity there. So like I felt like it was almost like you almost kind of have played a little bit of Kirby if you've played Smash. It has like a similar feel, I guess, especially when you're playing as Kirby.
I feel like if you feel that way too, if you go back and play like a game like Kirby Superstar, it's like very like proto Smash in terms of how the powers operate. So that might be one to recommend, and it's very exciting. But yeah, you can feel that in Smash Brothers for sure. Yeah, I agree. It's a nice. I think it doesn't stay its welcome either. It's like a simple concept. There's only so much you can do with it, but you try to make it an exciting, like, bite-sized journey, and then you just kind of elevate it from there with the extra mode, where it's like, well, if you enjoyed that, take it to the next level, and it gets a lot of juice out of it. Like, it's a short adventure, I think.
The extra mode, that is a really cool thing. We only played like a little bit of the first level, this time around. I had sort of the reaction that you did, Sean, when you first played it, which was like, oh, that's cool. And like, I just kind of moved on for now. But I think that's something that does kind of like push you to want to like replay it. And like next time I play it, like try it on the harder mode. But again, it, like that is what makes it like scales, you know, like you can enter it the beginner and come out the master.
Yeah. And I think it gets radically harder. And when you complete the extra mode, I guess not to spoil anything, but you do get yet another extra screen where you can configure how much vitality Kirby has and how many lives he has and stuff. So you can like turn the game into like a one-hit game and really start playing in this very like fine-tuned way to get the difficulty you want.
That's really cool. I think props to that. And I just want to say too, we mentioned him a little bit, but I'm sure you're familiar enough with Sakurai via, I think he's become almost like a meme like figure, obviously, throughout the years. But it was very cool to go back and see, you know, where he sort of got his start. And I think it's like a great gift to gaming, actually, that he has. We watched some of his YouTube channel where he shows off, you know, the way he made certain things. And again, like it blows my mind seeing, like, I don't even understand this stuff, but just seeing him show off like the way he can fit this all in this little game. It's a real gift to the gaming world.
Yeah, I loved seeing all the ways he like conserved space. You know, he made like doubles of things, or you're repurposing things without it feeling like things are being repurposed in the game. Yeah,
it was rather, I think, genius. And he also just acknowledging like some of the designs he makes. He's like, what is this? I don't know what it is. It just looks cool.
Yeah.
I really love that video. And another part of that video I love is like how he defends, like, I feel like can be pretty ahead of his time too with Kirby, and I think it's now that people are kind of looking back at it and being like, oh yeah, like this is very, like, I think people would play Kirby and be like, oh, this is easy, like what's the point, and like not consider it too much or think that the design isn't very like thoughtful. And it's like, here's the guy who like worked on Kid Icarus Uprising, worked on Smash, which is a hit. It's HAL Laboratories made like clever puzzle games. Like there's no way that this is not thoughtful. And he goes back and he defends the design. He's like, oh, you know, people ask me like, should he be able to fly like indefinitely? Like, isn't that like bogus or whatever, and like cheating or something? He's like, no, like I'm trying to give players a chance that like their game isn't like immediately just done the minute they fall into a pit and they have to start. It's like, it's giving them a chance to grow, and like there's like a purpose to it. And like, guess what? The sales numbers talked. Like it sold, like at that time it was the best till this day it was the best selling game until Forgotten Land, which has now outsold it. Wow. So, you know, he stood by his design choice, and, you know, going back to a lot of Game Boy games, that's one that you can, you know, still play in a way that maybe some other ones you don't feel as comfortable still in the modern age. So I think he knew what he was doing.
He's like very passionate. I think he really cares. That's something that I really appreciate, and I think, like I said, it really shows in this. And I think it just, like, yeah, like you said, like it being a Game Boy game, like the whole, like just in general, the aesthetic and everything, like I think he really nailed that. I like that he still supports his work too, but that makes me think this is the first time, like, really we've talked about a Game Boy game, and we do actually have planned at some point to go more into the Game Boy specifically, but that's not how we played this game this time. But like Bridget, you were saying you were playing it back in the day on the Game Boy. You had it. This, I can imagine this would be a great like game to travel, you can always like play. I feel like you can play a little bit, and it's very satisfying. It's a good mobile game, even though we didn't experience it that way.
Yeah, it's a great pick up and play game. Very easy to get into.
Yeah, I didn't play it on the original Game Boy cartridge until yesterday. I played it on an analog pocket. And I had it on, these various consoles and stuff. And then last year I was seeing the Cherry Orchard. I like Chekhov a lot, and I was seeing the Cherry Orchard in Chicago. And there's also a retro game store there that I like. And so I was like going to see one of my favorite plays, and I happened to see Kirby's Dream Land and the original cartridge like for sale in the store. And I'm like, well, let me combine two of my favorite things just in one day of experiences and pick up Kirby and see some Chekhov at the same time. But then I just hadn't gotten around to actually playing it off the actual cartridge until just recently.
I think I need to get one. I do. This game, I think it would be in like, the canon of Game Boy games, I think. So I feel like I have some Game Boy games, not a big collector, but I feel like I need this one, especially I love not just the aesthetic in game, which we can talk more about, but like the cover art of this game is incredible. That is something I do remember seeing as a kid. Whether I played the game or not, I don't remember, but it like really grabbed me as a kid. As Zelda fans, we love that same era of like aesthetic of like box arts. We go crazy for it. But yeah, just in general, like the world of this game, I really like too. We sort of hinted at it, but like Sakurai is sort of like, this is in here because whatever, it looks cool. Or in some cases, like, oh, I could reuse part of this sprite for over here, so I did, and that's what creates like this character versus this character. I love that sort of thing, and I just sort of like in general, like I guess McKenna, I'm sure you're familiar with the aesthetic a little bit from like Smash and stuff, but what was it like to see in the flesh, I guess, like core Kirby aesthetic? What did you think of that?
I liked it a lot. I think we like checked out. You can change the like coloring on the NSO.
Oh, you do like GBA or GBC? Yeah, the green.
Yeah, it all looks it's all very cute, and it's just a fun environment to be in. I love the stars. I love like I think Sakurai mentioned that sometimes like there's extra Kirby's on the screen. Yes. It's just like, okay, there.
Why?
That's cute. I love seeing the tree. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. There's like that apple tree that Dorothy goes to grab an apple from, and it gets mad at her. Starts fighting her. I was like, oh, this is like
the apples.
Yeah.
It's that scene where Dorothy inhales the apples and shoots them back at the tree.
Yeah. Only she had that ability.
She could fly indefinitely. This wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Would have totally taken the witch off guard.
Yeah, the Kirby aesthetics are sweet. Like I assume, like what. This is what I want to know from like the diehard Kirby fans. Like, how does this feel compared to like what I guess, Bridget, it's your first game. So like this kind of maybe sets your expectation of like what you think of when you think of Kirby, or what do you think of?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty core defining game in terms of like sort of the whimsical and mysterious vibe of the Kirby world, where there's things that just happen and it's fine. They don't need to always be explained entirely. The modern games sort of have more like kind of like a funny thing with the community, but it's like it's got more lore and like all this crazy background stuff. But even then, it's like, there's still an air of mystery that has maintained in the series, and because of that, it's very whimsical. It's dreamy, like it's dream world. It should be in some sense surreal and like some way you can't quite grasp it. Maybe changing even. And I like it. There's still the tree. The tree still returns like every other game.
Fan favorite.
Yeah. Fans love the tree in a way that's funny because there's this kind of joke where it's like, oh, Sonic fans, they get so mad when they have to see Green Zone again, but Kirby fans are like, there's the tree, It's like really excited about it. The games have occasionally changed aesthetics, and I've generally enjoyed them all. They still have an air of, like whimsy and magic, and there's some more sci-fi elements too in some of the later titles as well. So some things get like cosmic and kind of kooky. If you want to get into all that stuff, but even if you don't, it's fine too. I mean, Forgotten Land just came out, and people were like, "Whoa, the world in this one is like." The humans are all gone, and it's just like wrecked cars and buildings. But even then, it still maintains like a Kirby vibe. It's like amazing. And there is a tree in that game as well.
Yes, it's the same type of tree.
Yeah, it's another wispy woods. Yeah.
I don't think I could get tired of the tree. Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
Riff on him in some way.
Yeah.
Okay. Sean, how do the aesthetics strike you in this game? Is this classic?
Yeah, I feel like one thing that is really striking about playing this game is just how fully formed Kirby was and how fully formed his world was from the start, and how much they have just stuck with from the beginning. And I like when Kirby leans into that slightly more dreamy, surreal side to his world. And sometimes with modern Kirby, you get a bit more of the kawaii aesthetic that isn't bad necessarily, but it's a little homogenizing. It kind of makes Kirby look sort of cutesy in the way a lot of other contemporary Japanese stuff can be kind of cutesy. And that's not really my favorite Kirby aesthetic, because I don't know that it really emphasizes the things that originally made the character unique, which is that kind of quirkiness, that the thing where you can't quite fit him in a box, where Mario and Donkey Kong were inspired by Popeye, right? And Bluto, King Kong. We know, like Miyamoto has talked about his influences with some of these early games, or Zelda was inspired by The Lord of the Rings and Peter Pan. And there are these sort of cultural reference kind of there. And Kirby really is not anything, right? Like, what is Kirby? Who is Kirby, right? He's just kind of is this quirky, whimsical thing. I was struck too reading the story that this game has, where it describes Kirby as being like, having been like passing through Dreamland, and he decides to stay and help the people. And it's like, wait, Kirby's not originally from Dreamland? Like, where is he from if he's not originally from Dreamland? Right? So like, there's this interesting kind of surreal mystery to it. Like, you don't really need to know who he is. You don't need to know where he came from. I don't know. We talked about Unforgiven. I don't know about that movie's plot, but is there a stranger who comes in from out of town in that movie where you don't know their background?
Yeah,
because that's sort of what Kirby's Dream Land is. But yeah, it's that kind of surreal, kind of just weirdness that I think Kirby does so well, where it's weird, but in this really approachable, endearing way, without being quite a cookie cutter, homogenized, just sort of generic kind of cuteness.
Which is, I feel like that's funny, because I feel like it's totally true, 100% agree, but like just the design of Kirby himself was just sort of like, yeah, we just drew like well, actually, you might be able to tell us more about like the actual design, but from what I got, he was just sort of like, he had a basic character that he had to like start making the game with, and it was just like something simple, did it quick, and they just stuck with it. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's a placeholder design, and the devs at the time got attached to it and were like, it's so cute, and I guess Sakai was like, all right.
I mean, he's like endearing, but he's not cutesy, right? He's approachable, and like characters with round features are kind of naturally visually like, we see them as being, friendly because they have curves and things, whereas like angular characters like a Waluigi or something, we see him as evil because of all the angles. And so in some ways, Kirby is like the purest form of like, let's make a friendly, approachable character because he's all curves.
Yeah, would you be friends with Kirby?
Totally. I mean, how could you not?
Seems like he's got good intentions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something about, like, sorry, you were going to say?
Oh, no, I just, I guess I read that he was, like, always intended to be pink, but there was some confusion over his color, because the Game Boy, you know, is black and white. So the North American cover art has him as white, and I think somewhere they thought he was yellow.
Right, he's yellow somewhere.
Yeah, but
I think yellow was the other color that they proposed to make him, and it was between yellow and pink won.
Yeah, Miyamoto, I think, thought he was going to be yellow.
Yeah.
What do you get out of here, man?
pink was a good choice.
That's it's just like a common story on this show when we're talking about the development of some game where it's like, and then Miyamoto told them
He just shows up.
He just shows up. He's like, make him yellow.
I don't know that it was like a directive. I think he just thought he would be yellow or something.
Like,
and
he's like a philosopher. He's like, Kirby would be yellow. Yes.
Well, I don't know. I thought there was something where like he had also noted that there were like other yellow characters out there or something, or that's why Sakurai didn't want him to be yellow because like Pac-Man was also yellow.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
Like
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
That makes sense.
I remember he didn't. I think I read something too where it's like he didn't like the name Twinkle Popopo because it sounded too much like a Sanrio thing. So it's like they had to change the name from like Twinkle Popopo. And then the name for Kirby is also mysterious because it's like some people say it's the lawyer that defended them in that lawsuit regarding Donkey Kong. Some people think it's the manufacturer of vacuums.
I think it was confirmed that it was the lawyer.
Okay.
I thought that's something people do know for sure, that it was John Kirby who won the lawsuit.
Yeah.
It's kind of fitting in both regards, really. So, like, I can believe both are true.
Who is also a civil rights lawyer. So Kirby is a reference to a civil rights lawyer.
I think Kirby, the character, would be all about civil rights for sure. I mean, it seems like he stuck around in Dreamland of his own volition just to help out. Like, it doesn't seem like he had any... Actually, that was fun. Like, the manual itself had a lot of, like, really fun, like, characterization of just the world and stuff. Like, they would have, like, little, you know, cute bits of dialogue and stuff. And like, Kirby, he seemed like an affable fellow.
He helped redistribute that food, so you know everyone's well fed.
Yeah. I like just in terms of the aesthetic still, like I like that it does all come out of like that sort of like mystery does all come out of like those developmental needs, and I think that's sort of why, like, I feel like this might be the most, I don't know for sure, but might be the most pure Kirby experience because it is born out of that the most, as opposed to like, you know, like you mentioned later, like, oh, let's give it this sort of cute aesthetic or whatever. Like, you know, like Kirby flies around on that star just to get from level to level. Like Sakurai said again in that video, like, I don't know what the star is made out of or why it works. So I think this is, you know, I'll say it now before we play any of the other games. This is the most pure Kirby. I'm going to go with that. So one other thing I thought was really cool just in terms of like their Hal's legacy was like there are, you know, some little references and stuff to like other games. And I think the one that stuck out to me where I was like, wait a minute. And I did the pointing at the screen meme when we got to, what was it, the second level, Castle Lololo. And I was like, oh, like, is that like the Adventures of Lolo? And then we got to the boss, and it's those little, I forgot their names, but I think it's like Lala or something, Lolo and Lala. But that was like a really cute surprising sort of cameo that fit well just aesthetically in the game, but also that's a really cool game to reference, I think. Have you covered that on your show?
We haven't covered Adventures of Lolo yet, but it's definitely one I want to get to eventually.
Yeah, it's a rad, cute, clever game. Yeah, the HAL Laboratory games are cool. I assume I can't remember, I assume there's probably other little bits of like Easter eggs and stuff, but that really stood out to me.
There is a type of enemy in the extra mode who looks like Link throwing a boomerang at you.
Whoa.
And I'm not sure how direct a reference it is, but he looks a lot like Link throwing a boomerang.
I mean, that eventually becomes more of a reference, right, in the later games with the, like, isn't it like the sword copy ability where he gets the little hat?
Oh yeah, he's straight up like Link Kirby when he gets sword. Well, in Kirby Superstar, that's the first one where they introduced the hat. So he gets like Link's hat in that one.
Well, speaking of the enemies, I feel like there's like a ton of enemies in this game, which kind of surprised me, like the diversity of enemies here. But does everybody want to say like generally like favorite enemies? McKenna, do you have a favorite little guy? We're looking at a list right here, and it's like it's impossible to. Maybe actually let's let the experts go. Sean, do you have a favorite enemy from the game?
That's a good question. I'm sure I'll think about this more afterwards and realize I should have said something else.
Sure.
But I mean, I do like the Waddle Dees. I think they're just a classic character that has endured so much, and how they've gone from just being this kind of general enemy that Kirby's encountering to now you can play as Bandana Waddle Dee, who's a core character of the series, and Kirby in the Forgotten Land has a whole village of Waddle Dees, and they've become just such a part of the series. So I guess I'd say the Waddle Dee just off the top of my head, but I mean, we were talking about Wispy Woods before. I like him. I've got a plush Wispy Woods that sits right next to my TV in my apartment. I think Kracko is a very very fun kind of one of those, a nice example of the game doing things that are kind of weird, right? He's a cloud with an eye on it.
Oh yeah.
And yet, like, it doesn't come across as like grotesque or anything. It's just kind of whimsical and neat. King Dedede is a great villain for this first one. So a lot of good character designs too, beyond just Kirby.
Yeah, King Dedede, that was cool. Like to see, like it felt like, as mentioned before, like, oh, this is like already like very full formed. Like you see King Dedede, McKenna, where you're like the Smash guy. It's like without a doubt, that's him.
Yeah,
they nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Bridget, you have favorite enemies to encounter in this game?
Okay, well, me and my friend have an inside joke where he's like, you're like a number one Kirby fan, well, I'm number one Shatso fan, and it's just like the cannon that shoots at you. For some reason, it has a name, so I guess it's alive or something. I don't know, that's part of the whimsy as well. It's like this cannon's name is Shatso. So I'm gonna say Shatso for him. Patrick, if you're out there.
I love that. I love the naming conventions, like how there'll be like sometimes it's just like clearly the first thing they thought of, like Shatso, Puffy, but then it's like then we got Poppy Bros Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the breakdown of like the enemy substitutions for extra mode? I'll see if I can bring it up real quickly. But it's very funny just to read it out loud.
In the meantime, McKenna, favorite enemy?
Is that... There's like a pumpkin one. Is that the one
Mr. P. Umpkin?
Mr. P. Umpkin.
That's the one that was like kicking your ass.
Yeah, we ran into it and I was like, this is like the mask from Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah.
That like comes to life. It's just still, and then you like pick up something and it starts chasing you. And this one I was like trying to get by.
We didn't figure out how to get by that one unharmed. We just took the L and moved past it.
Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah, sorry, Sean, did you had the breakdown of the of the replacements?
Yeah, so looking at the list of enemy replacements for extra mode, we have Booler is replaced by Gasper, Bronto Bert is replaced by Koozer, Cappy is replaced by Blopper, Chucky is replaced by Hurley, Dizzy is replaced by Benny, Kaboo is replaced by Grumples, Kukler is replaced by Whiskers, Mumbies are replaced by Sculler, Puffy is replaced by Cocoon, Shotzo is replaced by Blatzy, Sir Kibble is replaced by Boomer, Squishy is replaced by Flotzo, Twizzy is replaced by Tukey, Two-Face is replaced by Mr. P. Umpkin, Whizzer is replaced by Peezer, Parasol will seek out the player instead of flying away once released. So
that was like almost like
so
some
much
slam
thought put into
poetry
all of those names.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are just names.
Wait, are the enemies? So there are some that are not in the base game. Is that how it works?
The extra mode has new variations of them, so new sprites and like some attack patterns from some of them.
That is mind blowing. The fact that they were able to like get that into that game, and are like already just the like kind of variety felt really good. The fact that it's like this whole other set is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
My favorite is that they move where a coconut falls in one section that you go up. So you think to go up the one side and not get hit by it, and it gets you in the extra mode.
That's funny.
That's a good troll. I was just scrolling those enemies actually, and then I scrolled up here at just the list of the items, and I just like looking at these items, a lot of very iconic items, and I like that like half of them are in Smash, which is sweet. I feel like that's cool. We got a lot of them in, but I just love like the design of some of them, or like just the conception. Like I get like there's like food is pretty much most of them, but then there's like a mic. I don't know. I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of microphones, so it's good to get.
Yeah, they're rather important to us.
But yeah, just these different the mint leaf, that was always fun. The curry, that's classic. Yeah, just like a nice cool set of items. I feel like Kirby I associate with like delicious foods, so I love seeing all these.
I think the mint leaf is supposed to be a sweet potato in the Japanese version.
Yeah,
it looks like a sweet potato.
Yeah, looking at it.
Yeah, it's we were looking at the manual, right? Didn't it call it sweet potato something? Yeah, it said something about
they replaced it or something, right? I don't know if the sprite is actually different.
No, I think it just happens to kind of look like a leaf too. And I think they're like, well, it makes more sense if he had, I guess, a fresh breath from a mint leaf versus like a hot breath, I guess, from a sweet potato, a big sweet potato. I don't know.
I mean, sometimes I look at a sweet potato and I'm like, that could be a mint leaf.
Yeah, easy to get confused.
Fair. Yeah, I will just plug again. I was scrolling up looking at this stuff at wickkirby.com, so it's a lovely, great wiki. Yeah. So please go look at that. But I guess while I'm scrolling here, it made me think of too the stages. We talked about how like there's a lot of abstract sort of designs here and everything, and I feel like with that and with the simplicity, it would maybe you'd think it would be hard to have like kind of variety in the worlds, but all these different levels are very like cool and distinct. Like I guess Sean, do you have a favorite world in this game?
So I guess one thing just about the levels in general is it's very striking how much ground it covers in just 20 something minutes to half an hour, like depending on how long you're playing through it. Kirby goes from being in this grassland to being in this castle that actually has branching rooms and paths in it to being on these islands. Then he gets shot out of the blowhole of a whale into the clouds, and then he's doing whatever. Like, it's this full like tour de force all in like 20 something minutes.
I'm glad you mentioned the whale too. That was so sick. That might be the best part of the game.
Yeah, so I guess I do like. I don't know that I have a favorite level or not, but I think the transition from going from the grasslands into the castle on the second level, where the game really opens up and starts having these different paths and these wackier enemies and these question mark blocks that don't even do anything. But there's just this kind of zaniness that's introduced into a game where I think a lot of people have played games that take place in these fields and these grasslands and things. And it introduces this really interesting kind of a little bit more exploration for Kirby. Makes the game a little bit less linear than you maybe initially think it's going to be. Not that there isn't still like a set path. And it's just such an unexpected wrinkle, I think, from where the game originally starts.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised like by the ability to like go in and out of rooms and like, you know, the branching paths is very cool. Yeah, Bridget, do you have a favorite sort of where would you like to vibe in this game?
I love the castle segment because I love that music. I mean, I love the whole game's music, but for some reason, from my childhood, they're just like,
Oh yeah,
things like the auditory stuff like really makes me remember segments a lot. And I like how my favorite thing too is like near the end, things get real surreal too, where it's like for some reason you're collecting other Kirby's and the levels are kind of remixed and you're like, what's going on? Like, is this a dream sequence? Is this real? Is this happening in Kirby's mind? Like, is DDD using the stars to like mess with them? Like, we don't really know, and it's not, you know, and they don't give like a visual to explain it. It's just like things are weird now, and you know, try to get these guys and then fight DDD.
Kirby has to like reconnect with himself.
So it's real deep.
Yeah.
I like that interpretation.
That was another one that Sakurai was like, yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. But I like, that's what's great about it, is you can kind of like interpret it however you like, and the game can get that across. I think I know where you want to be.
Yeah.
The islands?
That is where I like to vibe. I like
That's where you thrive.
Sunny, tropical, warm area. But I do also like the clouds.
Oh, sure.
You know, it just feels right to be flying around up in the sky.
Yeah, is that the one that had like, which level had the like boss where you fight? Like it's like a sort of becomes like a shooter game. Was that in the clouds? It had to be, right?
Kabula.
Kabula, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That
yeah,
was
that's
cool.
great.
She's the boss of the third.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kirby he's just gotten shot into the cloud, so he hasn't like quite started the cloud level yet.
Oh, okay. It's the
But he is
introduction
in
to
the
clouds.
sky. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like really fun, like surprising gameplay change that I didn't expect, but worked really well. It was very smart to do.
Yeah, that's remained with the series. Like I believe Sakurai seems to enjoy Shumps. He has a collection of Shump models that he's like posted on his Twitter account, and he would revisit that also in like Superstar, and then later Kirby games would all. I think Kirby games for the most part have like some kind of shooter segment for many of them.
He's so cool, I think. You mentioned the music. Yeah, who I don't think I think outside of Kirby, I don't know if I'm too familiar with the composer of this game. What was the name of the composer of this game?
I believe it's Jun Ishikawa.
Okay, and this is like a longtime composer for the Kirby series, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still around.
He's still there, yeah. I think he's like training new people, but he's still like around.
Yeah, there's like a new generation of Kirby composers who are also kind of coming back for more and more games now. There's like the old guard is still around doing things too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like stuff I instantly recognize as iconic. And we were just listening to the soundtrack earlier before recording. Any feelings? Do you have a favorite track or vibe, or what was your overall? We liked the soundtrack a lot. It was very cute.
Yeah, very easy to just like hum along with, can like bounce along with. Feel it's very whimsical, so which fits perfectly.
Yeah, a lot of like little, just even like the little jingles or like interstitial parts are very cool too.
Definitely.
Very dreamy.
Little like star sounds.
Yeah. Oh, the little star sounds, too good. That's a vibe for sure. Maybe you guys could tell us like what's the soundtrack like in the, sort of the canon of the Kirby soundtracks?
Well, the soundtrack has gotten like even more sort of like ton more variety. There'll be like real intense songs that like even like kind of like rock songs, and like there's a dubstep song in one of them, and like the Planet Robobot one. Like they go all over the genres have really expanded to depending on like where the world of the game goes for that particular entry, and they still maintain like a Kirby charm and vibe to them. That's impressive while still expanding. Like sometimes you'll listen to something and you're like, you won't even believe it came from a sound like the Kirby soundtrack. Like I've put Kirby music at work that's like just some song that's like rocking out from one of the entries or something, and they'll be like, what is that from like this other game? It's like, that's from Kirby. And they're like, whoa.
Surprisingly Kirby.
It's surprisingly Kirby. It's got that variety. It's like, I think a lot of people assume that Kirby's all like, like do, like so happy, we're going on an adventure, but there's moments where like it can get emotional, or it could get scary, or it could get grandiose, it could get a little jazzy, so get a little funky. So it's cool. And but they revisit like the classic songs all the time, and often like sometimes like there's an entry, Star Allies, where like there's the big final boss, and in that song, in the middle of that song, they insert like the original Green Greens in it to like harken back to like the original Kirby, because like the boss sort of starts to reference Kirby as well, and it's sort of like their final entry before they do 3D, so it's sort of like this emotional thing from the developers and the composer and everything, and it's like, it's like really cool. Like you still hear Green Greens. DDD's theme is still, reinterpreted, and it's still awesome. Every version is great.
I think it's another example of just how fully formed Kirby is right out of the gate. That these songs that were, I don't want to say just Game Boy melodies, but were made within the context of the Game Boy, have such a life of their own then for, decades to come. And they've been rearranged and remixed so many times. So many Kirby games will have so many of the same songs back again. We've heard the Green Green song so many times over the years. We've heard DDD's song so many times over the years. And now they have symphonies playing these songs. They have concert events where people can go and watch these songs played at that level. They release soundtracks for the games. The Kirby series is the only one, and even if the song isn't from Kirby's Dream Land specifically, but Button Masher, the video game music arranger, won a Grammy for his version of a song from Kirby Superstar. So the Kirby series is the only series where someone has won a Grammy for their arrangement.
Wow.
For a cover of a video game song. It's the only series that a cover has won a Grammy for. And so it like has a place even in just like the history of music. So the fact that these compositions can all be traced back to these songs from this Game Boy game is really something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, instantly recognizable as iconic. It's the reason I made that Western connection earlier was I sort of felt like, what is it, the Green Green song that goes do 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 do, like that's kind of like what I associate. Yeah. That song almost has like sort of I can imagine that being in the soundtrack to like a cowboy shooter sort of game. There's something like like I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's the groove or the melody even. There's just something so like, let's get out there and explore adventure type vibe. Driving, yeah. I think actually if you slowed it down a little bit, I feel like it almost could work as like the theme to like a Star Trek theme. There's something like grand about it. And I think if it was slower, like more, if I saw the orchestrated version, I could see it as like,
you gotta give it that Deep Space Nine like horn or whatever.
The trumpet.
The trumpet. Yeah.
I can't even do it right now, but that would be sick. But like I feel like there's something about that where it's like Kirby, he's out there, he's exploring like space, maybe. I guess it's Dreamland, but he's flying around a star. He's out there, he's exploring I guess I don't know. We don't know where Kirby comes from, right? Or there's lore for that, I take it, right?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Really.
That's great. That's great. I love that.
People have their theories, but I think the directors come out and was like, yeah, we're going to maintain a level of mystery and, things won't be concrete. So, I don't think we're banking on like a, whole backstory entry or anything like that.
Sure.
We say we're going to reveal where Kirby comes from, and then suddenly the podcast cuts out.
Hal's found us.
The deep state silencing you, yeah.
Kirby comes from...
I feel like, is that a meme? That's like a meme, right? Like what is Kirby made of? Like, what does he feel like?
Yeah,
I feel like
there's
I've
a
seen
lot
that.
of a lot of humor around, just how mysterious Kirby's, body is and what kind of a creature he is, that sort of thing.
What? Yeah. Okay. Well, McKenna, is there any other thoughts you had as like a first time player to the game? Anything else that stood out to you?
I enjoyed playing it. I'm very excited to check out the series as it evolves.
Yeah.
Future entries, yeah.
We're hoping to do more Kirby. Like, McKenna, you've said this before, but you kind of have a not so like out like this is what I'm doing, but you have like sort of a mission.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play some of the Nintendo series that I haven't really touched so much, like Kirby, Metroid. We've been doing Mario.
Yeah.
So
we're happy to have like you both here with us to start us on our Kirby journey. I guess before we go, do you have any other thoughts on this game?
Well, obviously this game is very like nostalgic for me. It's my first like entry into the series, and I think like starting there was good, and I think that it is like just a beautiful way to get into gaming that doesn't feel condescending or low quality. It feels like it respects you, but at the same time, it's like open to letting you kind of play in a way that you can kind of adjust your own difficulty if you want. And it's just like, I think it's just solid. I think it's amazing how like going back and playing retro, and I love retro games. I have no problem that some of them are a little like rough around the edges or particular in how you play them. But like, there's something nice that like Kirby, you go back to Kirby games, and because they weren't sort of like grinding you for your time, like beating you down so like you don't bring it back to the rental store or whatever, not concerned with any of that, just nice and short and sweet. They just have like still a modern like sensibility to them that's like, you could play this now, you could play it in the future, you could play it, yesterday, tomorrow, whenever, and it's like, it feels like, oh, this is just a solid game. And that's a testament to like being open-minded to who plays your games, instead of being like only people who could either afford to or people who are of a certain level can get on this ride, And I think that like accessibility and openness is like a beautiful part of its design. And I'm someone who plays like real, like I love Sekiro. I'm playing Elden Ring right now. And it's like, you might not think that like Kirby appeals to like a big like group of gamers, but I mean, I'll play Kirby, however, and still play my Elden Ring. So I love it. It's
yeah, absolutely. Entry. That's what's great. Kirby, it's like you said in all the categories we talked about, like people assume it's going to be one thing, but then you get in there and you're like, wow, incredible music, incredible like level design, character design. Like it's kind of I don't know. I guess it shouldn't be It's not surprising because we kind of know Kirby is classic, but I think just for, the wider gaming world, they kind of make assumptions about Kirby, like you said. And so, it was cool to like get in there and see that. Sean, how about you? Any other final words on Kirby's Dream Land?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting to go back to this game and see how strong the fundamentals of Kirby were from the very beginning before you even introduce the main thing people associate with Kirby and all the games that come afterwards. That you can take a game and play a version of him without his core ability that's copying enemies. And all the abilities he has here are still enough for a really complete, fun game. So I'd say for even people who might be inclined to dismiss this one and say, oh, well, it's just a shorter game. Maybe they're inclined to think that it's easier. They're inclined to think that it's maybe not a good value because they're looking for something longer and deeper. Playing Kirby's Dream Land feels like reading a short story, right? It's something that is meant to be experienced as a short form experience, but it's not less deep or less layered because of that. And for people who really want to think about the design decisions, like because it's such a short form thing, you can really see those things in pretty stark relief. You can see the decisions that are being made and how the game teaches you about Kirby's abilities and how the game, introduces you to new challenges as you go along and how it gradually escalates that difficulty, right? It does that kind of N+1 approach where it's like, okay, well, you've done this. Now try doing this. Okay, you've done this. Well, now let's make it more difficult and have you do this. And there's just so many smart things about it. There's so much polish to it. And I hope that people, even if maybe they're not really Kirby people, consider giving this one a try. It's on the Nintendo Switch Online. Plenty of Kirby games are on there. I would also say that Kirby's Dream Land 2 is a really excellent game for people who liked this one and like that kind of like Game Boy style of Kirby. That is also a really excellent game that takes everything that this game does. It does what a sequel should do and just takes it to the next level and makes it even better. So it's kind of an interesting example where like if someone had never played Kirby, I don't know that I would recommend starting with this one because it's just not really what Kirby's like now. But it actually still holds up really well. And sometimes I forget how well it holds up. Going back and playing it recently again, I was struck by how much I was enjoying it for such a kind of shorter form experience that it is.
Oh, for sure. I love the short story analogy. I think is like perfect. That like perfectly describes it. I want to say I just had fun playing it because it was a great game for us too. We were kind of just passing back and forth. We'd play like in one, like, well, we did it in like basically 3 sittings because we'd each play a level, let the other person play, and we did that 2 times, and then we had the final level, and we, you could play this easily in 1 sitting, but it was such a great like bite-sized little game for us to play together, and I don't know, it was cute, it was fun.
Recently, we compared 2 superheroes, Dashing Super Guy and Kirby from Nintendo. In some ways, Kirby lost big. No big hair, no big muscles, no weapons, nothing. All Kirby's got is appetite. Kirby's Dream Land, the thrilling new adventure game on Game Boy. Kirby munches, spits back, and floats, saving glorious Dreamland. He's Kirby, and he packs a mean bite. Kirby's Dream Land, only on Game Boy.
Yeah, we hope to do some more Kirby in the future. Once again, Bridget and Sean, it was great to meet you, and it was great to be joined by you. So, like, hopefully, if we continue this Kirby journey in the future, we'd be happy to have you back on anytime. It would be great. And can we promote? We're going to be on your show soon.
Yeah.
We record on such a delay that we'll actually probably be coming up on your show soon. So, I'm really excited to dive into some more Kirby.
Well, you can say what we have planned if you want to.
Well, actually, we're going to be covering it's a Return to Dreamland, correct? On the Wii.
Yeah,
that's okay. Sorry, I'm still
I haven't
like the
played
names.
my Wii in a long time, so that'll be cool to bring out the Wii and have that experience again.
We recently got the Wii, got it set up, and we're excited. We've played it a little bit, or I've played it a little bit, but
Yeah.
we're itching to play some Wii. That's really McKenna. That's your shit.
Yeah, that was that came out when I was in middle school. Played a ton of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to get into that, and also to get into some more. We're getting some more retro Kirby together. It'll be exciting. Do you guys want to tell people like more about where they can find your show, what links they want to check out and stuff?
Sure. So Kirby Conversations is on all the regular, usual podcast platforms. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on Spotify, or your podcasting platform of choice. I like Bluesky a lot, and I've kind of made Bluesky one of the main social media homes for the show. We also keep our Instagram very active, and Kai Parker, the merchandise photographer who's also on our show, people should definitely check out her stuff. She is Captain Dangerous online, and the Instagram also gives a great place to showcase her work and her Kirby miniature art. Bridget has a lot of really awesome illustrations that she does too that we share through there. So Instagram isn't always the best place for sharing links to things, but we have our main presence, I'd say, is visually we're on Instagram, and then following more written posts and microblogging links to things, that's on Bluesky. But we're also on Threads. Sometimes I post to X, but only because I feel like I have to sometimes do that. But I don't personally really use X very much anymore.
Yeah, we've moved away from it. We're going hard on the Bluesky.
Yeah.
So hopefully that site can figure out how to keep existing. Or else we won't have any internet presence.
Yeah. And Bridget, where can people find you?
I'm also on Bluesky, and I am on the dreaded X as Kabula Queen, Kabula_Queen, and on Instagram actually a lot more. So maybe that one's the best too, as my second place. But I'm number one Kirby fan on there, which sounds like kind of
Hell yeah. See, we got the right person.
sounds a little intense. Everyone's a Kirby fan, but I took that name. Sorry.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate that Kumazaki, the general director for the Kirby series, does seem to maybe know this show exists. He's never really interacted with it directly, but he'll sometimes respond to us, and he and Kai have a good rapport and stuff. So I'm not sure what he knows about the show, but he's probably seen it because he does occasionally comment on things or like things. So
I get nervous when stuff like that happens.
He liked one of my fan arts I did of him, and that was like real intense. I was like,
oh boy.
I hope you capture a person in art like well enough, and you're like sweating, But he loved it. So
seems like he did okay.
I'm not sure if he's ever listened to the show, but he does seem to be pretty accessible and seeing the kinds of things that fans are making. So
that's sweet.
That is nice. He's very generous.
He's very nice. Yeah.
Well, speaking of very nice, it was great to have you both on. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
You. Yeah.
I was telling you when I came on, like I've interviewed a lot of people over the years for different podcasts I've done and stuff, and this was my first chance to be a guest on someone else's show and be kind of on the other side of that. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It's such an honor. Well, McKenna, we got all our stuff down below. What do we want to plug? We want to plug your Patreon.
Yeah. I started a Patreon where I'm just blogging about all kinds of things. Talking about the virtual villagers games right now.
Which I had never heard of until you told me about these.
I think I'm McKenna7 on there. And all content is free to read and listen to right now.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. You can go check it out and just see, you can see your posts, but then also, if you want, you have the ability to support McKenna a little bit. And I would like that if you supported McKenna.
And does Flashback 64 have a Patreon too?
Yeah, we do. And in fact,
people should support that.
Yes. We have a Patreon. We do like bonus shows there those are like $5. You get at least 1 or 2, sometimes 4 a month, depending on what we do and what we feel like actually talking about. But yeah, we got good stuff over there. And there's also, if you go for $1, you can just get early episodes, and it's just sort of a way to give us a little bit of money. Which I appreciate. So, and thank you, Sean, for getting that.
Patreons are hard to promote. I know Patreons can be a tough sell, but people should respond to the link, and they should. I hope people can support you because you're doing good work.
Thank you. Oh, it means a lot. Like I said it to you before we recorded as well, but I checked out your show when we first met you, and it's a really cool show, and I'm really happy to have you on and be associated with your show. So once again, thank you. What do you say? Let's get out of here.
All right.
Well, see everybody later.
Bye.
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 And of course, we want to give a special thank you to all of our Millennium Star tier patrons. So thank you Darren Hupke, Infection Form, Jeremy Aber, Kiefer, Nico Sylvian, Paul Quaid, and Underlined V. Thank you so much, and check us out at patreon.com/flashback64.